Muted before we start. What's going on, guys? Good morning. It is early. Well, it's not really early. It's 10 o'clock here in the West Coast. It's afternoon for everybody else. I stayed up way too late recording last night for this week's video, so I'm a little tired. I'm getting some coffee in my blood. How are you guys this morning? And Richten's live, and it actually released a little early. They snuck it past. It was supposed to be released right now, but it was actually up a few minutes ago. All right, but yeah, thank you guys for showing up. I see Ghost Menace is here. Fry Minis, thank you for showing up, man. And David, thank you, brother. All right, so yeah, it is live. We have the book. At least I have a digital copy. My physical copy, one of my physical copies will be in later today, but that one will be sent out for a giveaway, and then I will be ordering another physical copy later for myself to put on my shelf. So this is going to be a little bit of a shorter stream because I do have some stuff I need to get to before 12 o'clock. So I'm going to just jump right into this one. Yeah, so Van Richten's is live. We have access to everything now. But the book isn't a secret. A lot of content creators did flip throughs of the book when they weren't supposed to, but you know, they did it. But then awesome channels like Fry Minis was doing like awesome video breakdowns of everything so far. I would recommend go checking that out too. He has some really good commentary about what to extract from the book. But yeah, whatever you guys want to see, let me know. I will go and dive right into specific sections. Right now, I'm going to start off with a disclaimer because I don't have the physical copy. Every book in 5th edition has a fun little disclaimer. But when it comes to Roll20, I don't believe I have it printed unless it's in the credit section. No, it's not. See? All right. So, but luckily, the people on Reddit have it. So let me read it for you guys. Disclaimer, by the sole act of opening this book, you acknowledge your complicity in the domain-spanning conspiracy that denied me, Azalin Rex, Wizard King of Darkon, my rightful place as both author and cover model for what could have been so much more than this doubtful collection of lies and slanders. Fortunately, as I've recently found my immortality unburdened by the trivialities of rule, I have endless opportunity to pursue thorough vengeance for even the pettiest affronts. Please prepare for my coming. I expect to be quartered in the utmost comfort while we personalize your redefinition of the word horror. So yeah, so this one's a bit of a threat compared to some of the other ones, but these are always funny. Nice little like lore throwaway stuff. So yeah, that is the disclaimer for the book. But yeah, so we're just gonna kind of click through, go through bits and pieces. This is my first time really looking at, obviously, the information at hand. So you're going to get a lot of my first reactions of kind of reading and looking at this stuff. All right, so this is just your standard intro on how to use the book. Obviously, with campaign setting books, 5th edition's actually been really good about giving tools for players and DMs on at least for the DM side, how to run the game and the different elements you can have and incorporate the either specific mechanics or how to have genre influences when you develop your campaign. For players, 5th edition has been really good about giving you a good basis of a bit of lore and kind of stepping stones and character ideas that can help you generate your character for these kind of campaigns. The only difference with Ravenloft off the bat is that it's incorporating a lot of different genres and a lot of subgenres for horror, so it's not blanket. While comparing this to something like Eberron and Ravnica and Theros, it hits on a very specific kind of genre or a style of game. So this opening part really introduces us into Ravenloft and even goes into how to use it, breaking down the chapter sections. We're going to start with the player options right now, because that's kind of obviously the channel's focused on player options, so that's really what I want to see, like the additional stuff for myself. But then I want to jump into the genre stuff because I want to see what tools they give for each one that help you generate your character. I think that's when you're looking at it from the other side of the DM screen, is like how is this worth my 30 to 50 bucks as a player to pick this up, and if it's going to help me generate and build characters. Oh, yeah, okay. So it gives over the general rules of what to do for DMs to help build and generate the atmosphere for a horror game. Some more lore stuff. All right. So, all right. So some basic good info. Ooh, the Bagman. So we'll get into some of the monster stuff as soon as we kind of get to that end portion of it, because there is some, not concerns, but I know issues that I've been seeing popping up since the book has been starting to get spoiled out regarding specifically how monsters and stuff were portrayed or are missing from the book. So okay, it goes over the dark powers. So there are the Dark Lords in Ravenloft, and then there's the Dark Powers. The Dark Powers are the super evil, mysterious bad guy that kind of controls everything, and they control and manipulate the Dark Lords. And the Dark Lords are those that are in control of these specific domains found in the demi-planes of Dread. So Count Strahd in Ravenloft, he is the Dark Lord of that domain, but there's a dark power that continually keeps them in that domain. They can never leave. They're just this evil force that works in the background that forces a Dark Lord to pretty much keeps them in prison. If you want to actually check out more lore about the Dark Lords, I recommend going to Jordan or Jorfden. Jordan, the PH is silent. He has a really good breakdown of what the Dark Lords and Ravenloft in his lore videos. That goes into detail and actually kind of goes into some of the other Dark Lords, and I believe he's doing a series on his channel that is breaking down each domain. So, yep. The thing is, like, I don't know, for those that are fans of comics, the Dark Lord or the Dark Powers kind of remind me of for those familiar with the Multiversity comic series. There was these pretty much the same thing. There's these dark powers that work in the mysterious background of the DC universe that manipulate and pretty much are the cause of all events. They're the ultimate bad guy. So that's what these kind of dark powers are. That's what it kind of reminds me of. All right, so okay, we're gonna get into Haunted Heroes, up into some lineage, dark gifts. Well, briefly, we don't really need to touch too much on the subclasses, but we'll kind of give a look, and I'll give maybe a little update on the Bard College of Spirits subclass, since I actually put out my video this last week on it. There's some stuff that I actually missed that I wanted to address too. So okay, so Haunted Heroes, looking at this section, this is just a way, this is the players centered kind of entryway point, and hey, here's what you need to do if you're going to bring a character into this. D&D 5th edition is really good about making sure you have that super heroic, hyper heroic fantasy hero, and that is not always great in a horror themed game because your character can't be that high powered. So that it's not so much on a mechanical level, it's how you develop your character and its mindset. DMs can do a lot of stuff to bring it down to a certain mechanical level, but ultimately, you know, if you're just kind of picking this up and just going to go ahead and play, like most people are, most casual D&D players are going to be, it's more so getting into the mindset of how your character is going to be and not be that super heroic, hyper heroic fantasy hero, and take on more traits of that would be considered as negatives or faults. Play into the character having a fear. It's not necessarily your character can't be brave, because that's one of the big things about horror genre is your character slowly progressing and overcoming their fear. That's a big cornerstone of the horror genre. You can see it in pretty much any movie out there, depending regardless of the kind of sub horror genre. So like even teen slasher flick, see it. They're all scared at the beginning. A bunch of them get off, but towards the end, you always have one or a group of teens that become the hero and eventually overcome their fear and able to defeat, whatever monster of the week kind of character they have out there. So really, what you have to really consider when developing a character for a Domain of Dread or horror game in general. All right, give you some nice ideas too here from where you want your character to come from. You can either have them be from the Domains of Dread itself, or you can have them be from any of the other settings. And since the way that the myths sort of work in the lore of the Domains of Dread, it kind of just whisks you away into Ravenloft or any of the domains. And actually, there is a section that covers all the subdomains, and the one I was the most excited to see was the one that incorporates Eberron, because I am a big Eberron fan. There wasn't really anything for any of the Magic the Gathering stuff. It makes sense if they're going to try to keep the brands separate and not necessarily tied to the universes together. But it would have been nice to see maybe some Innistrad stuff. I think Innistrad would have been a nice little hint that, hey, if you want to play Magic Gathering setting in horror, you don't want to put a book out, but we have an Innistrad setting that's really good. So let's see, know your fears. Yep, again, doubling down and making sure your character is fearful of something. And also another cornerstone of the horror genre, maybe there's like an evil inside your character. Maybe there's something dark. It's not necessarily make them a villain. It's just more so there's a dark presence inside them that doesn't necessarily make them a full-blooded hero at all times. They'd be more like an anti-hero. All right, and then again, doubling down on, as a player, what you can do to limit. And also, this is helpful tools for the DM too, to kind of like help balance and create the atmosphere of for a horror game, which I really like. Most. Hey, what's going on, Rich? Thank you for stopping by. Just jumping into some of these, jumping into the book and seeing how it affects character building right now before I jump into the DM, some of the DM stuff, and look at the monsters. All right, yeah. So this is a big one. I know Eric from Fry Minis touched on this one too in his video, but this is big. It's just funny because obviously some games just evolve into this really like Monty Python kind of jokey D&D game at times, or they get super serious. But there's always that level of comedy to kind of break the tension in most games. But I think it's more impactful, especially in horror games. For me personally, the right balance of like comedy and action, or comedy and action for most fantasy games is kind of like how the Marvel Cinematic Universe does things. Where the characters are jokey, but when the serious parts are serious, they're impactful. I would say double down on that, especially for horror theme, that make it that there's even smaller pockets of comedy to kind of liven up the mood, and then but the bits of horror are way more impactful. Okay. Again, they double down on this. I think consent is a big thing. If you want to play a Mel Brooks style Young Frankenstein campaign, go for it. If you want, actually, that would be a hilarious campaign. If everybody kind of has this like Saturday morning supervillain horror, gothic horror-esque caricature campaign, everybody kind of picks up, a different one. Maybe you want to be Count Chocula or Boo Berry. That'd be hilarious. But if you really want to scare people, or not scare people, but play into the dark, go for it. But yeah, consent. This is big. The horror genre has obviously evolved. Every kind of genre, fantasy, whatever it kind of is, has evolved and it's changed. And our perspective as a society is looking at things different, and we see certain things as problematic, or there's things that kind of in people's lives that they go through that may cause episodes or they're experiencing traumatic experiences that they may not want to, that they somehow correlate with certain things in fantasy that they may not want to relive. Consent, session zero stuff, making sure you double down and just talk to your players, get a great understanding of what level of intensity you guys want this. Every table's different. Every table can handle different things. Anybody who kind of knocks this stuff, I don't understand why. If you want to have an intense and your table can handle like really intensive and adult themes, go for it. Some tables don't want to do that. They want to have more of an escape. Don't fault them for that either. That it's D&D's your game. Make it however you want to play it, but don't knock anybody for wanting to create a space that is enjoyable for their party, like their friends, their whoever they're playing with. That's at the end of the game. It's about having fun and making sure session zero is super important. Just make sure everybody has a ground level consent. And again, this doubles down. Know when it's too far. Every person has a limit. I think if somebody does break your limit, I know in my games, if there was something that didn't feel right with my players, I would encourage them to tell me immediately at that point, or even if they didn't feel comfortable approaching me right then and there, they hit me up after the game, and I would totally understand and apologize and dial it back. Understand where I know if I've crossed the line. I think the big tool is listening to your players when it comes to this kind of stuff. Really listen and be considerate. The game needs to be equally as fun for them as it is for you, but your fun should not be at the cost of their fun. Yeah, with Rich, exactly what you said. As long as everybody's on the same page before the campaign begins, it's all good. So there's just different levels of intensity people can handle, especially when it comes to horror. Okay, and then this one is another big thing. I think this comes down to when building your character and considering faults. Play into the idea of giving your character a horrific circumstance, make things worse for your character. So like and I give you an example of like your character has a fear of goats, right? And then whenever your DM describes like an eldritch horror, ask if it has hooves or hourglass eyes or stuff like that. Yeah, and again, the last bit apart, I agree. Enjoy the struggle. So, and that's really what the big underlying theme of horror is: learning to survive. That's what it comes down to. Again, these are really, really great, even though it's kind of like brief. These are just like great points that you should consider when making your character for Ravenloft or any sort of horror game. All right, so now we're going to briefly go into lineages. I will be having a video for more specifically for the lineages in not this week, next week. But I've already covered them extensively in the Unearthed Arcana, and I will tell you not much has really changed. Minis did a cool breakdown for each specific one. Wintry Wyvern also did a great breakdown if you want to check out his video too, that goes over the differences of them. I will be breaking down the differences in my videos too, but I will also be including some ways you can fit them into other settings that are not Ravenloft or Forgotten Realms. So hope you guys will enjoy that one when it comes out next week. Mechanically, what do I want to break down? I think the only one I really want to talk about is the Dhampir. And mainly not because I'm a fan of vampires, it's more so they are the only ones that have something mechanically that is interesting that I think I could help clarify a bit. So Vampiric Bite, originally in its UA, there was some issues on how it clarified what necessarily was what modifiers you added to the attack and damage rolls. So the wording made it seem that you would also add your Constitution on top of your Strength for the attack. They clarified it now. It's just you just only add your Constitution modifier. You don't add your Strength modifier to it. but it counts as a natural weapon that is a simple melee weapon. So that means it will work with Paladin Smites and the Monk ability, and I believe can count as monk weapons. So yeah, so you want to play a monk, a vampire monk that can flurry of blows that is just a series of bites. Go for it. Smite bite is still a thing. Obviously, you're gonna need to create your build a certain way to make sure that your con is high enough that it can be reliable, but it's there. Actually, now that I think about it, for the monk, the martial arts ability, I believe it allows you to use strength or dex in place of any modifier for the weapon. So actually, you don't even need to build your monk in a certain way to do this. You can actually just use your monk as is and then use that as your weapon. Yeah, you can martial art of biting. Good to go. I can see that kind of pairing this with the an open hand monk, and then just for flavoring like the bite attack as when you do the like stunning strikes or something like that, as like you're biting them into paralysis. That'd be pretty sweet. Other than that, yeah, that's just mainly the main distinction about how Vampiric Bite works. I believe Ted from Nerd Immersion, I saw him post something on Twitter asking a follow-up for another rule. I believe if it pairs with Hunter's Mark, but I didn't look into that myself. It should pair with Hunter's Mark, but I believe it might also provide more hit points. Because I believe it's going to be the total damage that you deal. Yeah, piercing damage. So yeah. Other than that, that pair are pretty sweet. All of them are really, really great. I don't really have any complaints. Oh, I think my only complaint really comes down to the reborn. It's a little, for me, it's a little boring, and the reason it's boring is not. It's just simply because it's kind of options we've seen already. So outside of the memory ability that I really enjoyed, it kind of just has stuff we've seen in Warforged and other construct or undead features. So yeah, but other than that, like, this ability is really sweet. Getting to add a pretty much a bardic inspiration die on any ability check you make or any skill check you make on. But other than that, it's still fine. It's just boring. But to me, we've seen these options before. Okay, dark gifts. So dark gifts are a interesting way to power up your character without but also giving you a negative for it too. So this excuse me, Theros, the Mythic Odysseys of Theros, it had supernatural gifts. It was also supernatural gifts were also first introduced in Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. They only had one, it was the hollow one, but Theros had a bunch of other ones where these early first level options that powered up your character. In Theros, it made sense because you were going for a mythic, super hyper mythic, legendary, heroic character. So your characters were actually starting at a higher power level. The dark gifts, on the other hand, I believe will start you off if you take these at level 1. I'm just gonna click all of them. Won't go through all of them. I just want to see, but they do give you a drawback. Right now, most of the artwork I've seen is stuff that have been rolled out in in promos. I'm pretty sure as soon as we get into the monster section, I'll probably really hone in on a couple pieces. Yeah, so you get a drawback. So you're going to get some bonuses, and it looks like the ones compared to, at least with this Echoing Soul one, compared to what you would get in Mythic Odyssey of Theros, they're more dialed back and a lot smaller. So this one is only going to give you additional 2 additional skills and an extra language, right? But then you're going to get a drawback for it. Yeah, so that's one thing. So they're not going to be as powerful. They're still going to be flavorful. Let's see some of the other ones. Maybe that one's just like a lower powered one. quote unquote. You learn the message cantrip on Gathering Whispers. So again, you get a cantrip level ability. And then this one gives you a reaction ability. Okay, and then a reaction ability that pretty much kind of seems like cutting words. The bardic, the lower bard's cutting words ability. That's kind of reminds me of. Yeah, and then this is the drawback. Okay, so most of these are going to be, at least these two are going to have you roll on a table that give you an effect after you make an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Depending on how, if they're all going to be like this, let me go to another one. Okay, no. I don't know. That can be intrusive and slow things down because it's going to be after every check. I personally wouldn't. Oh no, or saving throw on a 1. Okay, so it's only when you crit fail. Okay, then it's not that bad. I think that spices things up. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of the Wild Magic Sorcerer, kind of like that. So yeah, these are great. I would not shy away from these, and in fact, I'm probably gonna include these in my Avernus game. Devils like to make. There'll be some reflavoring, but yeah, this are all pretty sweet. Okay, second skin. This acts kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing. There's involuntary changes. And here we go. Symbiotic Being. This would be great in an Eberron game. For those not familiar with the dwarves in this setting, I can't remember the clan specific. Oh, Morhold dwarves. They fight. They kind of remind me of Dragon Age. They fight specifically symbiote monsters under their mountain. They're at a constant war, and then some of them actually take on the symbiote to help fight symbiotes. Kind of have a venom vibe going on. This would be actually a pretty cool thing to add on top of your character if you're gonna play that. I would want my DM to let me do that. All right, Touch of Death. Okay, so let's start gifts. What else do we have? Okay, I'm gonna quickly point out something for the College of Spirits Bard really quick. I will skip over the Warlock Patron, the Undead Warlock Patron. Actually, we'll be doing a video this week and releasing that one, so expect that one on Friday. I previously covered these in their UA form. Nothing really changed too much from their UA forms. Just the College of Spirits Bard had some clarity cleaned up in its called the Tales from Beyond feature and the Spirit Tales table. They gave everything names and they just gave clarity and kind of rebalanced and actually upped the damage of a few of them. So yeah, that's really what it comes down to. The Undead Patron Warlock had the same, no actual rule changes except for the Mortal Husk ability. Instead of friendly fire, you can target who you want to hit with your explosion when you go down. But College of Spirits Bard specifically, I was actually talking about this in my Discord, but because I saw it on Twitter, Ukulele Bard on Twitter brought up the issue that I partly covered in the Bard video for this, but actually overlooked another aspect of it. So the Spiritual Focus, when you hit level 6, you're supposed to be able to add a d6 to any damage or healing spell you do. But the way... Oh, the bar, level 14 for Bard changed majorly? Oh. Okay. Oh, level 14. Actually, I did bring that up in the video. And I forgot to compare it, but yeah, I changed it so that you just roll twice. Anyway, good that you brought that up, Rich. I forgot, I did totally overlooked that change, but still brought it up in the video. Yeah, okay, so in regards to Spiritual Focus, it gives you a spellcasting focus ability or item. Spellcasting Focus is specifically only, at least rules as written, only replace the spell component of if you have a material component. So you can use this instead of the material component unless that material component has in a crazy amount of gold, like a diamond or and such. The problem is when you hit level 6, any spell you cast through the spiritual focus, you're supposed to add the d6 to the damage or healing. Unfortunately, a large majority of the damage spells don't have a material component in it. I believe the only one that really does is metal. And then the healing spells, none of them have a material component, so you're not even going to add the d6 to the. And that's rules as written. I think this is just a large oversight in how Wizards approached building this, because they legitimately just need to say whenever you cast a bard spell and are holding the spiritual focus, and not through the spiritual focus, and it would completely change it and actually make it work as intended. I believe they want you to add that d6 to any damage or healing spell you do, and it makes sense. Why would you give you an ability that doesn't actually matter? So yeah, I touched on this regarding the damage portion of it, but I completely overlooked the healing portion, and that's my fault. But yeah, I wanted to bring it up now because, and then the quick change is just if they're holding the spiritual focus. If I was running this game and a player was wanting to play a College of Spirits bard, I wouldn't hold that against them and just let them get the bonus. I expect an errata, hopefully, because I believe they took parts of the Artificer, and the Artificer cast spells slightly different when they use their focus. Yeah, and then the level 14 ability, as Rich said, will let you roll twice on the table and you choose the best option out of those two results. Gives you a little bit more control over tail. And looking at the time, we're still good. Backgrounds, they added some new backgrounds, I believe. I think, or they didn't. Yes. One part, and I always have a problem with okay, so there's a little. Okay, I'm gonna have to dig into it and figure out how to get into the backgrounds. The Ravenloft, and at least in the digital copy, there's always some issues with Roll20 that'll link a page and direct you to another part that has nothing to do. So what it's doing me directly to the basic rules for the backgrounds of 5th edition and not linking me to the specific options in Ravenloft. I will not be able to show you guys that, unfortunately. Right now, I believe they were supposed to add an investigator role, and they reprinted the haunted one. Okay, so yeah, the haunted one I used in the Innistrad game I was playing in, so I'm familiar with that one. That one's pretty sweet. You take on kind of like this. The whole idea is you take on a character that's been through a tragic past and has turned that tragedy into sometimes into a positive or as a life mission or goal to overcome it. Investigator is a new one, and that was the one I wanted to kind of check out because there is a investigator variant from, I want to say, Sword Coast Guide. I'm probably misspeaking, but there is a variant of a specific it's a variant of City Watch or Guard or Soldier, something along those lines. And I wanted to see what was the difference of like one dedicated to it. But yeah, so hopefully Roll20 can fix that, because yeah, that would be great. Kind of pops up on a lot of options, and that is why I still get the book, because sometimes I don't get access to certain stuff because there's errors. Okay, so horror trinkets. This I think is going to be great for including. This right here is like one of those things that I love when they add these in books. I don't DM a lot, but for me, I find this super useful because I think about it from a player's perspective when I actually DM. If I had a player that's like, oh, I want to include like a memento or something that ties into my background, this is where the DM and the player can collaborate, and then this gives you like the DM a hook to somehow use that and get you into the story and hook your character's backstory into a campaign. Yeah, I love little things like this. Not There's really no mechanical aspect to it unless you make it mechanical. But again, it's just really solid, flavorful options that let the DM and player collab. Curse of Fry Minis. Curse of Strahd had D versions of trinkets, and this for an actual D100. Good to know. That is a lot of trinkets. Yeah, a lot for whatever reason. This stuff in casual games, this stuff kind of gets overlooked at times. I would recommend as a player to try to include stuff like this and kind of like give your DM toys to play with, give you hooks. Don't be afraid to give your DM stuff to play with. It gets you as a player more immersed in the game. All right, so okay, we're getting into now some DM tools. Let's start clicking everywhere. Oh, see, okay. I was trying to see if I can cheat and hit character creation, but as you can see, it went straight to Ebron for some reason. Okay, we're gonna go. I don't want to cover everything. So I think I'm gonna skip the creating domains section because I want to jump into the feature domains. The Travelers of the Mist, because I kind of want to check out and see how Vistanti were done myself, and then I want to jump into let's see it and the Monsters of Ravenloft. I think that's where I will jump it, and so genres of horror. So they touched on the big ones. So body horror. So I believe that would include stuff like Frankenstein. And body modifications and severing of body parts, that kind of fantasy horror, that horror. Thank you. This is Stream Beats. So this is the lo-fi one. I recommend Stream Beats. They offer a lot of free stuff. They do a job for really high quality music for streaming and your videos. They have other genres too. Hashtag not sponsored. I'm not sponsored by Stream Beats, but I just highly recommend them. I believe they just put out a rock album too. If you're into that, they have some rock also. The cosmic horror. This is your Cthulhu stuff. Really, that's what it comes down to. It is your extra planar, I believe. This is probably going to slot into more of your Spelljammer extra planar campaigns so you get into that higher level. It's really easy to slot this into your guys' games. I think a little bit easier than body horror. So this is more about physical transformations. I can understand seeing this, obviously, like a Frankenstein's monster for this one, or maybe like a Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing. Funny thing is, I can probably see a cross blend of body horror and cosmic horror. As like people, the biggest. I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 a lot again, and it reminds me of the opening sequence of the teaser that they put out, where the person is going under Ceramorphosis and has turned into a mind flayer. So that's the kind of stuff and that's if you're mixing like body horror with cosmic horror. So again, they're going over some stuff. Heck yeah, man. Harris really great music. And he also has a really good YouTube channel too, going over like, it mainly goes over streaming tips, but some of that stuff is applicable to you. Alpha Gaming, if you guys want to check that out or kind of interested in that whole aspect of content creation or YouTube in general, or Twitch streaming. That's a really good channel. Yeah. I didn't even notice this. It gives you like really some ideas of monsters to consider to use. That is actually super useful, and also may take you in a different direction. Like I wouldn't have considered a black pudding for like body horror, but then it makes sense if your character is fighting a pudding, a blob, and they're melting, being consumed by it. Medusa is another one I wouldn't have considered, but I Medusa and Gorgons in general too, like more Greek themes. But using that as a horror monster actually was really sweet. Yep, and then help you generate your villains. This kind of reminds me of the Ravnica book where they when you're creating a actually no, this reminds me more of the Theros book when you go through the different gods and how you can use them in your campaign, either as the hero or the villain, depending on what thing. And obviously, this is just going to be all villain. But yeah, this is what it reminds me of. With the torments, ooh. I'm kind of glad this came out after. This book came out after. A side note, my level 14 artificer wizard from my Storm King's Thunder campaign, he's missing an eye and now has a beholder eye. And I believe if my DM would have got a hold of this section, he wouldn't have a beholder eye. He would have something gross. So I'm glad that my builder boy is safe. All right, so Cosmic Horror, again, kind of going over different things to consider when using it. I think the biggest example, if people want to see like an actual live example, is just popping into the Critical Role Season 2 right now. They're doing a lot of cosmic extraplanar horror-ish things right now. So if you guys want an example of that, I would recommend maybe you could sit through some of these long episodes, popping in and kind of watching the last couple episodes. They're really digging into that kind of stuff. The Beholder Eye, I was allowed to have a Ray of Disintegration. He gave me the option of either giving it full or half. For me, it made sense if the eye was going to fit into my eye socket. It wouldn't be the full thing. So I chose it a half. Also, it's because when my character woke up from this whole ordeal and had his body parts kind of replaced, he woke up and shot a beam out, and I almost I almost killed one of the player's characters. So I was like, I don't want to actually kill off another player's character just because I was trying to get mine back. There's a longer list, and Vampiric Vine Flare. Ooh, this kind of like, oh man, it just makes me want them to print. Like, I know Spelljammer's a meme, but I want a Spelljammer book. Even if it's not a sending book, just give me a campaign that's Spelljammer. And see Cosmic Horror villains. Yeah, so it looks like they're just gonna give you like a good basis of like different things to do, and I think that's awesome. All right, so let's go into other horror genres really quick to see what it is. Disaster horror. Ooh, okay, that's cool. So difference from this section, it just looks like they're just giving you little touches on it. They're not going to give you like the full breakdown. Excuse me. Cult Detective. This would be cool to throw into any Candlekeep Mysteries game. You kind of run. You can kind of blend the genre and the book together. That would give you like a good way to do that. Psychological horror, I believe, may be one of the hardest ones to really do to get your characters in the mood because it's more cerebral. I think getting into people's actual fear. Slasher horror, yep. Let's just play some Jason and Freddy Krueger stuff. Honestly, I think a lot of people are gonna go gear towards this kind of horror when they're playing compared to other ones, just because it plays easier for 5th edition. I would think slasher horror. Okay, yeah, they cover. There's a lot of good stuff they cover. I was hope. Okay, yeah, they still do go into character options that I'm seeing, so that's good. It gives you a good basis on where to kind of like how to build your character to make it fit within the theme. Oh, versus fear. We'll also go into fear and stress. I know there's a mechanic there. Then look at monsters, travelers, Distanti. Yeah, the icons are awesome. They're knocking the every little like detail that they're putting in is really knocking it out of the park for the art. I don't know if they made pins for those symbols. Because that would actually be pretty sweet to like pick up like a pin set, or like if they were giving them out as promos for like conventions and stuff. Whenever those decide to come back, um, yeah, like those would be like cool little giveaways. Okay, so strangers in. Okay, so okay, so what is this section? Adventures in the Domains of Dread often indulge in a single domain's distinct frightful theme, but if you plan to run whole campaigns set in the Land of Mist, creating a narrative that spans the domains. Okay, so this is just going to be another. This is a DM's tool set to kind of figure out how to bridge all the domains together, create one big, large narrative, which is cool. I more tools like this because at least 5th edition, normally when they kind of create a campaign or a setting book, they offer a low level entry adventure to go with it, but there's nothing ever really else after it. I know DM's Guild people write some stuff to continue a bit after, but never a full campaign. Yeah, like like some of these setting books would probably do really well if they kind of released maybe a campaign book along with it, or released a DM's Guild supplement that's kind of like, oh, here's how to play a full campaign in this. You might want to check Etsy. I know there's a limited press, like a pin press that works with wizards to do special stuff. I know they do a lot of magic ones that are limited runs, but I don't know if they've done too many D&D ones. I need to get the name of them, and I can link. But okay, we need one thing I wanted to find out. Trying to remember: Nature, Ravenloft, Travelers in the Mist, feature domains. Here we go. Just because I want to see other domains of dread. Just because I want to see my lightning rail. Yeah, here we go. So, big plot point in Eberron campaigns is that there was this big old civil war between the nation of Galifar. So when you're playing in an Eberron game, you're coming out of that, and then you're actually a bunch of separate nations now. And the reason they're at a standstill is because there was an event that nobody knows what happened, but a great disaster took out one entire nation, the nation of Siri or Sire. You can pronounce it however you want. And it's just shrouded in a large mist, and nobody knows exactly why that happened, but people are afraid that it will happen again to their nation, so they stopped the war completely. Does this come with maps on here? I'm pretty sure it does, CBev. I assuming the maps will be in if I were to run a game. Part of the problem with the Roll20 edition, while it's incorporated into their infrastructure for running games and stuff, if you just want to look at specific stuff, kind of have to generate a game and go and look for like tokens and stuff. They just don't let you look at everything unless it's like the basic stuff. That's why I always recommend picking up the book if you really want to be able to flip through, look at things. I'm not familiar enough with D&D Beyond to know how they structure and release the content for the books on there. So if anybody knows like how you can visually look at that stuff, go ahead and let them know, or let me know, because yeah, I'm too invested in Roll20 now to like jump ship to another service. But I would consider it. Seer 1313, the Morning Rail. This is probably a really cool idea, for especially for a one shot. You're trapped in the Mournlands, is what they're called in Eberron. That's what Seer is now, and that there's this haunted lightning rail that just runs through it, and your characters are just trapped. D&D Beyond is much better for this reviewing purpose, in my opinion. Yeah, it would make sense. They are 100% licensed to run for D&D, so it would make sense they have a cleaner experience. Like I can't even access certain parts of the book right now until they fix it. Okay, but I just wanted to see that. Okay, Markovia, Nightmare Lands. kind of have like a Fey world too. That's pretty sweet. Okay. Learn that. Travelers in the Mist. See, I was trying to find the part of the Vistanti, but it doesn't kind of have it, so I'm probably gonna have to look for it later. Okay, so another set of tools for DMs to kind of set up their core games. This is always useful. Nothing really in here for players that I can actually see. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It looks like all the player options are front loaded up literally in the book, just right up front. And now we're gonna get into not necessarily tools, but these are kind of just guidelines. I think that's one of the bigger critiques of 5th edition is that while they give you a lot of freedom to do what you want, for those that kind of just want to pick up and play, but are invested into the system, they might not have the time to develop some of those tools. Luckily, there are great resources and content creators everywhere that are providing resources for this kind of stuff, but I can understand the frustration of wanting to just pick up and not feel like there's enough meat in the game. So from what it looks like, oh, the Taroka deck is probably my friend and DM's favorite tool to use. Travelers in the Mist. Okay, I'm gonna have to look right now. Travelers in the Mist. Let's see if okay, so yeah. So in the Roll20 section, yeah, in Roll20, it's not pulling them up. So that's another problem with the book. So don't worry, I will get the physical book. I just want to actually I'll need to sit down and put your video on, right, Eric? I will do it. Odd Woodman, I enjoy your content. Are there any changes to your Dragonborn Undead Warlock build after launch? In reality, no. There actually shouldn't be. The only thing that would change really is the Immortal Husk ability. It's user friendly now. So if you go down in the middle of combat, instead of like just blowing up and not having to worry about the spacing of your character, you just go to town and then just target the ones that put you down, and then come back up and then go to town. The only other options I think you might want to consider is maybe look at the Dragonborn options from the most recent Unearthed Arcana. Some of those alternate Dragonborn and maybe those feet may be something to consider for that build. But other than that, there really shouldn't be changes. I would just look at those to maybe incorporate, because some of those new UA's Dragonborn options are pretty sweet and are a lot stronger than what was printed at the time when I did that build. Yeah, so I'm going into next page. Shame, Roll20, shame. All right, it's okay. I'll need to pop your video and watch it. I just wanted to see personally if they corrected some of the language and the depictions of the Vistanti to make them not so stereotypical, and problematic. I wanted to see if they actually did the work for it, because I think that's really important to really kind of get that done correctly and have it so that it's more inclusive. Roll20, man. God, so close to getting stuff right, and then they don't. Okay, so each setting book has a set of mechanics that kind of just like really nail down, help you nail down the theme of the campaign or book or the setting itself. Ravnica had the renown system, pretty much for the guilds. Mythic Odysseys of Theros had the piety system, which gave, depending on how much you worked for your god. Eberron actually had the group patron, which would allow a better starting and cleaner starting place for your character, for your group to start from, and kind of build favors your reputation with a specific pretty much starting background character. I believe if you kind of pair that up with the renown system, it kind of like they work hand in hand. So this book has fear and stress. So let's see what the fear and stress is. You see how it is, because there is the madness that table or mechanic that was in Out of the Abyss, that campaign book. So I was wondering if they were going to take that and then buff it up like they did with the Renown and Piety system. But it looks like they might have just taken it and they just like made it into something new. Fear. An overwhelming foe or horde monster doesn't need magic or some supernatural ability to strike fear into the most stalwart adventurers. During any frightful encounter, you can call on a character to make a saving throw or resist scared. The character must succeed on a DC wisdom saving throw or become frightened. Alright, so it's giving you tools for the fear mechanic. As a DM, I would probably use this, and I would need to work and talk to my players to figure out what their fear is, and that's when I would like strike it and hit them. I wouldn't just throw it at it randomly. For me, if it's something that their character is legitimately afraid of, that's when I would probably go in and use this. Okay, and then stress. Stress mechanic. So it can be tracked as a stress score, and it gives you ways that you can ooh, that is rough. Okay. All right, Eric, thank you for stopping by. And again, congrats on the 1K, hitting that magic number. You keep on doing the awesome work and just keep plugging away, man. It's working out. All right, so the stress mechanic. Let us look what it does exactly. So a tense dramatic moment, especially one involving one of a character's seat of fear. Every 24 hours, a character goes without finishing a long rest, and then you're gonna start getting with that, you'll start getting levels of exhaustion. Witnessing the death of a loved one, trigger it. Okay, so hoping what I would have liked to see with this is maybe, okay, when a character makes an attack roll or ability check or saving throw, they must apply their stress score as any penalty. Okay, there it is. That's the big thing. The higher the stress score, the more likely you're going to fail. So that's it right there. Okay, that's a neat mechanic. I think this should be implemented into any horror game. I think this raises the stakes and kind of takes away that super heroic like feeling that 5th edition has. And I think honestly, this is a good mechanic for people that want to play a grittier and quote unquote realistic campaign. I think a more survival oriented campaign, this is still a good mechanic to have. And it helps out balance the game out in a very simple way. It's just I think as a DM, you would need to really nail down the things that would generate those levels, that level of stress, and generate those points and be consistent about it. It kind of feels at times like it may have, they give you some ideas on what to do. I think as a DM, it's like this is exactly what happens and this is how it's going to go. Really nail that down, else it's going to kind of feel like the inspiration mechanic for 5th edition, where it's like the DM kind of just has to remember they need to do it. So yeah, so really, that's really neat. Giving a mechanic to create penalties and make things harder, while the 5th edition is always kind of being like player friendly. It's never a bad idea to give stuff that make things challenging. I just think it has to be, obviously the right table needs to. If you're just kind of doing a roller coaster ride playing D&D, obviously you're not going to use this mechanic, but yeah, if you guys are wanting a more intense, or not even intense, just a different kind of experience, this is perfect. Yeah, so I think that will do it for that stuff I want to look at. Let's look at some monsters. Obviously this is like the big thing. There's a point of contention with the book where people are upset with it. So specifically in regards to the monsters featured in Ravenloft, there is a lack of certain monsters. Specifically, the Dark Lords are missing, and the Bagman, which has been hyped up, does not have stats either. So that's kind of frustrating. So we're gonna see what they do have. I know in Theros, Mythic Odysseys of Theros, they found ways for you to build a mythic monster, mythic boss monster. I'm wanting to see if there's anything like that to not necessarily build a mythic monster, but if there's any changes you can do to make character or a monster more horror centered, or like, had that more of a horror feel. All right, so it's going over the tactics to use, monsters traits, and then okay, here is monstrous minion. So a bunch of traits that you can add onto your monster stats that'll kind of give them that the feeling depending on what kind of genre you're doing. That's actually really good. Alien Mind, Cosmic Core, Minions Mind, Sacrificial Minion, Selfless Bodyguard. All right, so it's gonna be kind of for like the little side minion characters. That's good. Creating unique nightmares. All right, Beware the Bagman. So they kind of created their own little boogeyman in here, and it would have been awesome if they actually gave it stats. I'm pretty sure somebody will have stats or already has stats up, but it has really cool lore. It's just this thing that's haunting bags of holding, stealing your stuff, and is waiting to kill you. So it's a good way to introduce a horror element to a party that is used to playing a very specific way. So this would like work and terrify my play group, because in every campaign we've run, we guarantee to have a bag of holding, and this kind of monster would punish us from being so reliant on that magic item. Yeah, so but unfortunately there isn't stats for it. So we're gonna go, okay, so look at I'm just gonna pick a bunch of different ones. Baronet, we got zombie lit, brain in a jar. If you guys want to see a specific monster, go ahead and let me know. I will click on it. Okay, we're gonna look at what? Gallows Spear. Look at that. Nosferatu. Spawn. Okay. Okay. Gonna look at a few different. All right, Death's Head. So this is your Headless Horseman. Pretty much just what we got. I'm actually really surprised this was never printed in the books at all yet. So kind of like visually iconic, at least for visually iconic. But I guess it makes sense to put it in a horror book. Headless Horseman. What is going on? Why is that's the token? Okay. Death Head is a disembodied flying head. Oh, okay, so it's not that. Okay, no wonder it is this. That is interesting. One, the head, it's just a monster's head. It's wow. Okay, that's interesting. That's funny. Totally threw me off. All right. So it can be a Nothic head or a Medusa's head, which are both equally scary. Or the Medusa's a scary one. That would be interesting to run in a Theros camp. That just reminds me of the myth itself, and then having a disembodying head, so petrifying bite, and you can even up it that if somebody holds it and uses it, they can actually turn something to petrify it itself, turn something to stone. Oh, and there's some varieties. That's some neat way to like add different monsters within like one monster stat block, which is pretty sweet. So you're getting like 3 different monsters you can do. So you get like an aberrant head, the Medusa head, and then a gnashing head, which is probably just going to be like your generic undead, yeah, zombie head. So that's cool. This would be funny too to like use as like like an NPC. Maybe like this is a guide for your players going into any of the domains of dread. They stumble upon a head. This is their guide, so they kind of have to take this head around with them. And you have stats for it. I really like this one. Okay, let's go to the carionets. These creepy dolls. They actually made creepy dolls a monster. All right, so false objects. So pretty much it could sit there and act like an actual doll. This would have been sweet in my group's Innistrad campaign, because I believe my DM was trying to set up some creepy doll situation that we never really got into. Would have been actually really sweet for him to have a stat block for that. Oh, ooh, soul swap. If that is so, you have to be cursed by the needle, and then you're not protected by good and evil, or evil and good, excuse me, and you must succeed a DC 12 charisma saving throw, or pretty much your consciousness is in the body of the carionet. Oh man, that's terrible. you're in a little toy. You're Chucky. That is sweet, but oh man, that is sweet, but for Magic the Gathering players, it's like your character turns into Stuffy Doll. That's sad. Or Pinocchio, haunted Pinocchio. Man, that's sweet. Storm of Zombie Lives. Oh, it didn't even get its own. Didn't even get its own. Just Storm of Zombie Limbs. So obviously, for like, yeah, it gives you the idea of where to use in Zombie Apocalypse. I'm actually surprised that didn't get its own section in like genres, since the zombie shows and zombie genre horror genre is its own thing now. It's like zombies are its own genre. So yeah, but at least they mentioned it here. It would have been actually wouldn't have been a bad idea for them to include that sort of how to run those kind of games in a D&D setting. Okay, multi-attack, undead mass. I'm wondering if it's gonna follow like the same swarm. Yeah, okay, it does follow the swarm rules, where the more you hit it, the less of them there are. Okay. Yeah. That is pretty sweet. Yeah, and see different abilities depending on how many of them are left. So that is pretty basic. Brain in a jar. I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3, and there's a lot of these floating around right in the beginning of the game. Innate spellcasting psionics. So it gets at will detect thoughts, mage hand, and zone of truth. Okay, and then 3 times per day each. You can do charm person or hold person. Once per day, they can do compulsion, hold monster, or sleep at 3rd level, and cautious hideous laughter. Oh man, so you can't really hide from this. It'll automatically sense the presence and location of any creature within 30 feet of it that has intelligence of 3 or higher. So this is like a good monster to have like as a scouting device. Like you're in a dungeon, and what the monster would have is like, oh, we're putting this that we can actually not worry and then go to sleep and stuff. This will keep watch for us. What else there? It has Mind Blast and Chill Touch. But I'm pretty sure, yeah, it has no movement unless it has a flying speed. Okay. Really, really slow. How big is it? It's small too. It has a lot of hit points. 55 hit points. CR3. Yeah, those are good to have. Let's see. Priest of Osiba. Okay, so these are. Okay, so I believe they're a priest of a lich that Strahd fought against when he was human, and now he is one of the dark powers. And their goal is to release Strahd from the mist, so to get him out of the demi-planes of dread. So that's interesting. Okay, so they found a way to include like a cultish enemy in the demi-planes of dread, which would think there would be a lot of and a lot of variety of, especially depending on the genres they fit into. But it looks like they only have a very specific one that at least is in Ravenloft itself. Boons of Undeath. So yeah, they're kind of that undead patron warlock vibe. And then, but you can have them take on different undead. So for players looking to kind of figure out how to flavor their undead patron, I'd actually look at this section too to give you some good ideas on how to do it. Okay, Soul Blade. This one has multi-attack, a priest that attacks twice. 2d4 plus 2 piercing damage. And if the target is paralyzed until the start of the priest's next turn, if this damage reduces a medium or small creature to 0, the creature dies. Oh, wow. So for those familiar with DC Comics, the character Katana, for a long time, her sword would actually, when it killed somebody, would take their soul to trap it. They've changed it now, but that's what the sword used to do. It's pretty much like that. That's pretty sweet. Necrotic Bolt. So they kind of just get this very strong. Ooh, it's more like a guiding bolt ish ability. Soul Tattoo. As a bonus action, the priest touches one of the soul tattoos on its body. The tattoo vanishes as the trapped soul manifests. The shadowy creature that appears in an unoccupied space, the priest can see within 30 feet of it. So it just gives them a like a shadowy pet. It's oh man, so they multiply. That is crazy. They're actually really deadly. Level 6, they're actually really strong. Gallows Speakers. All right, so another undead kind of ghost. You can use that as CR6. Corporal movement, unusual nature, foretelling touch. So for Nickos, pretty much like if you want a ghost but don't want to have the aging problem that ghosts have, another strong monster to use. Ooh, Vampiric Mind Flayer. This is crazy looking. Look at that. Oh, all Arl and gross. Excuse me. So these are like enemies of Mind Flayers themselves because they consider them sick. That'd be interesting to have like a Mind Flayer war, or maybe a small collective of them have become vampiric and fighting with the main ones and are trying to get back into the connected back to the mind, the Elder Brain. So I'm assuming they're just gonna give them everything the Mind Flayer has it already, and then just add in vampiric abilities. So yep, we get Spider Climb, Sunlight Sensitivity, Disrupt Psych. Yep, what I expected. They still eat brains. They have some extra vampire qualities to them. All right, we're gonna get into some of the bigger ones. Actually, let's look at Starspawn before we get into like some of the named monsters. Starspawn. Oh, this is gross. I didn't think Starspawn would have hair, but I thought they were just like a bunch of wormy, but no, grosser. Raider form. Okay, this one's more like a boss. So, oh, that's actually pretty sweet. So they kind of, if you just need like a standard Eldritch Horror kind of like monster and don't really know where to take it, I think like having like this, using this would probably be the best way. Unearthly Bile, Psychic Orb, Lashing Maw, multi-attack, legendary actions, warp space. This kind of reminds me of, for those that have, we're just looking at monsters right now, Rich. I'm getting close to wrapping this thing up, but we're looking at monsters and was going over the Star Spawn and how this would be like perfect for if you need an Eldritch Horror enemy but don't necessarily have stats for something specific. You can use this one instead. Also, it just reminds me, for those that are fans of Watchmen and the comic book, Ozymandias summons a alien creature that's kind of just like this blob. This was kind of, that's what reminds me of, except it's not pink. Hairy and gross. Their actions, yeah, it's sweet. And it's challenge rating 21, so it's at a good challenge rating for a party take on. Oh. All right, we're gonna get to some of the name ones. Double checking. A lot of new art. I can actually double checking this part. We're gonna get into Nosferatu. Warhammer 40k Chaos Spawn as well. Yep, like these things, like ugly. And I'm glad they're including like extra planar horror stuff in this too. They're not like waiting to have that stuff out for like a Spelljammer book or a Planes book, that they're incorporating it in like a horror book too. Nosferatu. Wait, are they considering this like it's like a single type of enemy, or is it like, okay, so there's multiple Nosferatus, so it's not a single creature, it is a bunch of creatures. Vicious undead hunters, Nosferatu possess the endless thirst of vampires, but none of their grace. So it's a vampire variant, and it's not a specific vampire, which I thought it was gonna be. So they've made it so that there's a lot of them. That is interesting. What CR are they? They're CR8. So they're gonna get sunlight hypersensitivity, which is different. So it takes 20 radiant damage when it starts its turn in sunlight. So not only, wow, okay. So normally sunlight sensitivity, they just have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks, but if they're in the sun directly, they take damage too. That is interesting. Okay, they get the regeneration, that vampire, spider climb, claw attack, bite attack. Okay, blood disgorge, like their main ability, like their big ability. Nosferatu vomits blood in a 15-foot cone, so pretty much a burning hands. A failed save, the creature takes 4d8 necrotic damage and can't regain hit points for 1 minute. Ooh, that can hurt a party, especially if a DM uses it at a time when the party is actually down. Yeah. Oh. Ooh. This is upgraded vampire. Yanshi is, I'm not familiar with the myth for this one, and I don't really know which Asian culture this belongs to. It is when a soul becomes trapped within its corpse, its bitterness can reanimate its body. So it's kind of like a ghost / zombie, the way that they're describing it. Weaknesses: has the following flaws. So it has a fear of its own reflection, and it is susceptible to holy symbol. And it automatically fails against saving throws against effects that turn undead. So, oh man, clerics can dunk on this all day. See what it has in terms of its abilities. Consume energy. The Jiangshi draws energy from a creature within 30 feet of it. The target takes D16 Constitution saving throw. Okay, and then they would take 48 if they fail, or half as much on a successful one. And it regains hit points equal to the necrotic damage dealt. And then it gains benefits if it regained those hit points. So its walking speed increases to 40 feet, and it gains flying speed, walking speed, and can hover. And so if your character dies to the necrotic damage, it comes back as a white. So you lose your character, and then it turns into Jiangshi 5 days later. Oh, if it plays another humanoid with its life drain feature. This has the potential to be a mid to low level villain for our campaign. It has this ability alone kind of gives me like a villain vibe that actually would be great for stories, and also scare for the players, because if their character drops, yeah, they could lose them. So it makes it really, really tough, and it kind of has a zombie apocalypse kind of vibe too, because one consumes one, and then it consumes another to create another, and it keeps just going and going and going. And then it has a change shape ability, polymorphs into a beast, a humanoid, or an undead that is medium or small. I really like this undead. That is really cool. It'd be a really good basis for a villain campaign. All right, the last monster we're gonna look at, and I'm probably gonna call it, unless you guys want to look at something else. We're gonna loop Guru. So this is they're taking it from a very specific kind of werewolf and making it like kind of like how they did with Nosferatu, and making it like there's multiple of this is interesting. Okay, so it is a werewolf, but what changes it? So it gives you rules on how to remove the werewolf curse, lycanthropy, which is cool. It has blood frenzy, which has advantage on attack rolls against a creature that doesn't have all its hit points. So as long as you're not up to full, this thing will be able to hit you super reliably. Legendary resistance. Okay, so this is going to be a boss. Loop Guru fails a saving throw. It can choose to succeed instead. Regeneration gains 10 points at the start of each turns. Multi-attack. And it has human and werewolf forms. And a direwolf form. Okay, so it has 3 forms. Change shape. And legendary action, so it can swipe, Molly pounce, bite. CR 13. All right, so this one is interesting depending on how you play it. So obviously all this stuff is really aggressive, so not so much this thing needs to be fighting like and just going board and board, slobber knocker kind of battle. I think this kind of fight would benefit if you used this character like a stalker and is trying to single out and take out one character. Hey, thanks for stopping by, David. I'm gonna be wrapping it up soon anyway. Yeah, Luke Guru. Interesting. I think the abilities themselves are just very straightforward. This is an aggressive monster. I think it's gonna be a matter of how you play it and making it more of a hunter stalker that kind of like targets enemies or targets a specific players and tries to take them out and pick them off. I think playing this villain and utilizing the environment, especially as a boss, would probably benefit. Obviously, if a player can get this thing locked down and they can just go to town on it, They probably should not fight alone, but I don't. You're probably gonna want some smaller werewolves to help with that too. Okay. All right, so that about does it for taking a look at Ravenloft. Yeah, there's a lot of really sweet stuff. I didn't get to look at all the player options just because Roll20 doesn't have everything properly connected. I'll see. Okay, now they fixed it. But yeah, I will be covering. I already covered the College Spirits Bard, so you can check that video out this week. I will be coming out with the Undead Patron Warlock. And then the next week, I will be doing a video on the lineages, the Dhampir, the Hexblade, and the Reborn. And then I think that will be it for my coverage for Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. Pretty much all the information is actually kind of already out. There's nothing really more I can add to it except on those items. But I will also be doing a character build for the... I'll be doing 2 character builds for the book. The first one that will be out will be a character I want to play in a Ravenloft campaign, and the next one will be the card captor that I mentioned in the College Spirits Bard video. I've also covered these in the UA, so if you want to check those videos out, they're out too. And as I mentioned earlier in the I have a build out already for the Undead Patron Warlock that actually uses a Dracolich as your undead patron, so if you want to check that out, go ahead, and it is on the channel. Other than that, thank you guys for showing up for this impromptu live stream. I will be still streaming this Friday, and actually we'll be doing a character build live stream using the character options from Ravenloft and building a character for that stream. Get your ideas ready, and we'll create something different and cool that will be probably for another horror setting. Other than that, obviously, best way to support the channel is like, comment. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe already. Liking and commenting on any video, not just my videos, but any content creator you follow, helps them out and puts them out into the algorithm. So YouTube realizes, hey, people are watching and liking your stuff. So always go and do that. Support. That's the best way to support me or any content creator on the platform. Watch. If you want to support the channel directly, Patreon, Dungeoneers Pack there. You can support the channel there. You'll get access to any character build scripts for any video I've done exclusively for there. And the $5 tier setting, you can get the video, watch it a day ahead. And there's a couple other benefits. And then another way to support the channel directly would be here on YouTube, getting a membership, and you get the same benefits you would get as the $5 tier on Patreon. Other than that, check me out on the socials to know when new videos are up, or hit that notification bell too. That helps out. So Dungeoneers Pack YT on Facebook, Dungeoneers Pack on Instagram, and DPack YT on Twitter. And if you want to talk more about Ravenloft itself, or any character build video I've done, or just want to talk about D&D or anything, a link to the Discord or the channel is down below. I would love to have you on there, and then I'm there pretty much every day. So if you want to just talk shop, I'm there, and I will answer any questions you guys have. Again, thank you guys for showing up. I'll see you guys Friday with a new video and another live stream. Guys, go ahead and have a good one. I will see you then. Shout out again, showing up Claude, Rich, David, Eric for Fry Minis, Bev, Jalen Smith. Have a good one, guys.